Hey, welcome back. It's Carlos Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com. Today we're going to be talking about boundaries. And I'm not talking about those political ones or the ones around countries. I'm talking about the boundaries you need to set on the date. I'm going to show you how to do that without scaring them off. Hey, before we get started today, make sure you comment below and let me know what questions you have. What is it you want me to create videos for? And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. You know, first dates are pretty vulnerable for women. You're dealing with a guy that could, at his best, be your next Romeo in shining armor, and at his worst, possibly be your worst college frat boy douchebag nightmare. Now again, I'm going to emphasize that most men fall into a very nice bell curve. You know, on one end we've got the jerks, on the other end we've got the wimps, and in the middle there's a nice big hefty population of genuinely decent guys right there in the middle. There are far more good guys out there than crappy guys. You just don't hear from them as much because most men were a little intimidated to make a move in our current political climate. Yeah, guys are genuinely confused and scared of doing the wrong thing when it comes to taking initiative with women. And with so many mixed messages in the media, can you blame them? Yeah, it's about time people like Harvey Weinstein and all the other creepy guys of the world were held accountable. I'm all for that. And the unfortunate side effect is that, well, now it's pretty scary for a guy to even consider asking a woman on a date when he doesn't know what's acceptable and what might actually get him labeled as another pervy dude. So let me say this. You can set boundaries on a date with him and avoid scaring him off in the process. And it's essential that you do this, and you have to set those boundaries because you're going to be setting the playing field for your relationship with him, your entire future, all the way to marriage and beyond. So here's a few tips. I'm going to give you 3 real quick tips before we get to the rest of how to set those boundaries. 3 tips about how to deal with men when setting boundaries. Number 1 is don't say yes when you really mean no. Not only is this incredibly confusing to a guy, it's also leading him on. Now, I understand that it can be hard to be so plain-spoken with a guy because you want to be nice, you want to be liked, and you don't want to be a bitch. But if there's something you probably know by now, it's that guys don't get hints. If you pull your punches and you don't speak very clearly and plainly with him, he won't get it. He'll misunderstand and he'll keep doing whatever it is you don't want him to do. Tip number 2, speak your truth. Many women are afraid to tell a guy what she's really thinking and feeling on the inside. When you don't tell the truth because you're afraid he's going to reject you or you're afraid of any reaction he might have, you're disrespecting yourself and you're underestimating him. And tip number 3, which I'm going to be doing at the risk of sounding like I'm cheerleading here, but don't let a man run your life. It can be easy to go along for the ride with a guy's assertiveness and his strong willpower. Sometimes it's just plain easier to go along to get along. Now this happens on the first date, or it usually happens when he picks everything out, right? Like the wine, where you go to eat, he'll pick the appetizer. Just make sure you get your vote on these things and don't start out with a bad pattern. There's something I want you to always remember. The CEO of your life is you. Don't ever forget that. Okay, now there's a few places you want to set some boundaries to make sure that you don't lose your way in your relationship. So draw the line. Boundary number 1 is, where's the end zone? The end zone in football is where each team is trying to take the football to score, right? And eventually they want to win the game. Well, you have to know up front that you have to know if he's a guy that's looking for a good time, is that his end zone, or is he looking for a relationship? On the first date, you'll want to listen to the hints he drops in conversation. If he starts talking sexual with you on the first date, well, he's probably testing you to see how far he can get on this date. So his end zone would be the bedroom at first. Here's another secret about guys that you won't find anywhere else. Men are always looking for a good time first and then a relationship if you turn out to be cool, fun, and compatible with him. Now that doesn't mean that's how he wants the date to actually go. He's just testing, remember? You might think that all guys out there are commitment phobic, the way they act up front and then they kind of grow distant later on. You've had that happen maybe? Well, he's just scared to commit, Carlos, right? Wrong. Sorry guys, I'm going to bust your game wide open for the ladies today. It's the one trick that guys use that works every single time. Women have been fed this lie for long enough. Men actually like that women think that they are commitment phobic because it gives him the excuse he needs to leave when the time is right, when he realizes this might not be for him. Remember this, guys are wired to commit to the woman that will unlock his heart by simply All right, wait a minute. I'm going to get to that one actually in a bit. For now, just know that guys do commit, but we do it differently than women do. All right, draw the line. Boundary number 2, keep it real. One of the big mistakes that people make when they're dating is they try to make the first few dates a romantic fantasy come true. They make dates that just simply don't resemble real life at all for those first few months. It's like a romantic playground. Now, guys are mostly guilty of this if they're the ones that are planning, but you should be the one that's watching out and setting this particular boundary. Because the woman gets attached to this first date fantasy land as it feels wonderfully romantic. I mean, who wouldn't? Romantic dinners, thrilling events, going out to shows. The first date is often a little bit too much, so just go to coffee instead of dinner. But it's not realistic for the man to keep up that level of expectation. And what it does is it avoids the fact that you need to bond on a real world level first. You have to know if this guy is for real. Crazy all-nighters where he ends up sleeping over or flying off to Mexico for the weekend with you on a whim, it's just not sustainable by either of you. It also amplifies the attraction hormones in your system to a level where, well, you're going to be tricking yourselves about the level of desire and commitment you actually do have for each other. You have to see, know, and experience how you interact in the real world to know if your relationship is going to work. All right, draw the line. Boundary number 3. Whoa, give me some space. This one can be tricky, and I'm really surprised more couples don't actually talk about it more. After all, if you don't know what your expectations are here, you could find yourself in a lot of awkward arguments. And what I'm talking about is how much space you need and how much me time you need. You got to know what each one of you thinks is the ideal amount of time to spend together, as well as the time you need apart. Back when you were in high school, yeah, sure, you could ditch school and make out on the couch all day long. Okay, maybe I might have done that one once or twice too. But as grown-ups, we know what our limits are. You know when you need that me time to get the grocery shopping done and hang out with your kids or head to the gym, and you know you've got a real life to manage here. Your guy might not have the same obligations or needs that you do, or vice versa. So just be sure to be clear about your needs up front so that you both know what time you have together and what time you need apart. Misunderstandings are usually caused by one person not wanting to rock the boat, so they stay silent. They don't want a chance messing up this new romance. Here's a really important fact for you. People don't usually walk away from a relationship because the other person has boundaries. They walk away because the communication of the boundaries wasn't done well, and now there's conflict, misunderstandings, and confusion. And most of the time, it's because those boundaries were set too late. All right, draw the line. Boundary number 4. Hey, I'm talking here. Communication. Did that word just trigger a whole bunch of stuff for you? Communication is the trickiest part of dating with men, and for guys, it's dating women. Hands down, it's the most complicated part. And it's not because guys are particularly complicated in how they talk about things. We just communicate in a much different way than women do, which feels very confusing because it seems to be coming from a completely different way of thinking. Now, I used to feel the same way about women until I read a few good books on the topic of communication and how women think versus how men think and so on. And you know what? I rarely find myself confused about it now. This doesn't mean I haven't done it in my moments, but for the most part, I get how men and women go wrong when they're communicating. That's why I got into this whole dating advice gig. Remember that boundaries are not meant to be empty threats or harsh limits that you set that make you feel uncomfortable. Boundaries are clear, loving, firm words we say to assert our needs. And these boundaries tell him how you want to be treated in life and in love. On the first date, be willing to establish any boundaries around conversation topics, things like sex, previous relationships, or anything that's too intimate too soon. And that's how you set that particular boundary right off the bat. All right, finally, draw the line. Boundary number 5, gonna get physical. It's probably the toughest part to set a boundary in, but it has to be done as soon as you can, and that's the physical part of your relationship. The first date is not too soon to talk about it, especially that's the place you have to. If physical intimacy comes up, it needs to be addressed right away. The simple fact is that you might actually feel that this guy is incredible on that first date, maybe awesome, and you don't want to lose this chance with him. You might be really tempted to jump in bed with him on the first date because that chemistry is so fantastic. But the truth is, you can't do it. Reason number 1, if you need to sleep with him to lock him down, you never really had the connection you thought you did. Reason number 2, if you sleep with him too soon, you'll ruin the challenge for him. He will lose interest if he doesn't have to work for your affection. Reason number 3, it breaks the connection with the guy. If he gets to home base too soon, he won't feel the right level of comfort with you. And reason number 4, if you sleep with a guy too soon, you won't seem valuable to him. You'll have basically given him the milk for free, as the saying goes. Remember my particularly astute quote about this, and that is, easy never really turns into love anywhere else but in the movies. All right? I could probably go on for hours with more reasons why you shouldn't be suckered into this trap. And I realize it's tough when everything you see in the movies, everything you see and hear in music, and everything you read about in romance books tells you that you should just throw caution to the wind and be as sexual as you want. But it's all a lie. Now, at the risk of being politically incorrect, let me be really clear about this. You will find that the men that you make wait a little bit will be more emotionally involved and connected with you than if you jump right into bed with them. You can take that right from Carlos. I know it's considered sexist to say it, but it's the truth, and most women know it deep down and deep inside them. If you want a long-term relationship with a guy, it's not a good idea to pull the bait and switch, where you get him sexually connected first and then rope him into something else in the long term. The women that really manage to find quality men and keep them don't use that strategy. In fact, these women have always been successful with men throughout history. What do they do differently? Instead, these women understand that they can use something far more powerful to make a guy fall for her and lock this guy down into a commitment. In fact, he'll be the one wanting the commitment. You don't have to use shiny prizes to lure him. Instead, you use the power of promise with him. It's called the Cupid effect. So if you want him to commit to you and stop running away from you, you've got to know how to use the Cupid effect to make him love you in one easy step. Go on to the link you see below me here. That's right, datingadviceguru.com/commitment. Make sure you like the video and do the big 3. The new big 3 that you got to do is subscribe to the video so you get them every week. Turn on notifications, that little bell icon or whatever it is down there next to the subscribe, so that you get notified when the new ones come out. And number 3, make sure you leave me your comments and questions below. I'd like to know what it is you want from me. Tell me what you want the next video on. Hey, this is Carlos Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com. As always, live and love with passion.